But there's other places around. I just think everybody has different views about that. I know we're struggling as a company dealing with performance pay. You try to value what's the job worth, and then how you differentiate performance is very tricky. And in a school context, it's even tricky. So I just think I like, for example, the Teacher Advancement Program. We have 2 or 3 campuses in Richardson. There's others around the state. TDA's been supportive of that. It tends to reward the campus. Especially when you can't just look at state assessments because not everybody takes a state assessment. The librarians don't give the assessment. The music teacher. And in my view, having been a superintendent, all those people play a key role in a successful school. So I kind of like the campus-wide approach. People have different views about that. I know Mike feels really strongly about you need to look at the job. I mean, the hard to find folks, math, science, and some of those fields. Those jobs should be maybe valued differently than a job that's easier to fill. I've got mixed feelings about that, but it's clear we have shortages still in special ed, math, science, bilingual, and probably some others. That sure answers your question, but those are some places I've looked.
I've got another question, Jim.
I'm sure that legislature will solve all these issues.
I've been following the commission, and you have some great recommendations. Talk to us more about the recommendation about the minimum teacher salary, and I'm interested in that for a couple reasons. First of all, I think probably everybody at this event would agree that teachers should be valued more and treated more professionally and paid more. But that I know of, there's not any other profession in the state that we set a state minimum on. So why do we think setting a state minimum for teachers is different than anything else and is going to put us where we need to be? That's question one. Question two is, you said, and of course it's going to cost the state a lot of money. I assume you don't mean that directly. You just mean if districts have to pay more money, it's going to cost districts a lot of money, which in turn is going to get a lot of people complaining.
It was certainly a misstatement to say the state.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, like so many districts started getting state aid anyway.
Right.
And some of them less and less. I think it was on the first part of your question, it was a compromise. I think there were people on the commission that felt that we should just leave it solely up to districts, the local communities. But I think ultimately we just felt, and I don't want to speak for anybody but myself right here, that we needed to make a statement of value to some degree. I mean, the state has always been involved in the salary business. Even if they weren't funding it, they were setting the minimum. And the compromise, I guess, we reached was that let's look at a much higher starting point and then get out of the way. And I mean, certainly one could argue every district should be on their own and just whatever they could afford to pay, they could pay. But I was really distressed to some degree, and Ginger would be better to speak to this because she comes from one of those districts that pays the minimum. She's chosen to live there. She didn't have to live there, but it's just, I can't help but think that district and districts like it really struggle to find the kinds of teachers that she is. Because it's, $27,000 is just, that's just barely above poverty at this point in time, I think. I mean, I can remember 30 years ago when I got elected to the school board in Odessa, my very first meeting, they were setting the salary. And, here I was a practicing lawyer, doing reasonably well, and walked in and they said, we're going to raise the teacher pay to $17,000 a year. I said, what? And it was just unbelievable to me that how could anybody could, and of course they couldn't exist on that. They had other jobs and they did other things. We've certainly made progress when a lot of starting pays are in the mid to high 40s now, but it's still a problem. So I don't know, it was a compromise, to answer your question. We talked about it, and even then, some of the organizations didn't like doing away with the schedule. I don't think they objected to the minimum, because it was significantly higher than where we are now, but they wanted to maintain the schedule.
A question for you mentioned a little bit about the adult basic education, that there's no data for it, but could you speak to what some of the council's motives or recommendations may be, given, as you said, many states have that it's tied to more of the K-12, the budgeting and is tied more for the K-12, but it is, given the demographics of the state, something that, of course, higher ed has to grapple with quite a bit. So any recommendations on that?
Yeah, not yet. The council hasn't addressed that yet. But the Texas Association of Community Colleges has made a recommendation that the funding for adult basic education be moved from TEA to the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And there's been a bill filed already to move it from TEA to the Texas Workforce Commission. And so my guess is it will be moved sometime. But the real problem with adult basic education isn't so much where it's located as much as it is the underfunding of adult basic education in the state of Texas. Because, in testimony during the intercession, we've got 3 million people in the state of Texas who really need adult basic education. And we served just over 100,000 last year. We spend less as a state on adult basic education. As a state of Texas, we spend less than the county of San Diego, California spends on adult basic education. So we've got, twofold, and the TACC recommendation is begin to work towards funding adult basic education sufficiently. But also take a look at where is it best located for the alignment and the delivery of adult basic education, where it intersects and combines with community colleges is usually where the students are going to go. And so look at what's the best place for alignment of ABE. Is it TWC? Is it Working?
Maybe one more?
For either of you, maybe more so Richard, with the new core coming in 2014, the Common Course numbering is pretty timely. But if I look over the ACGM, as you know, you're writing a lot of the student learning outcomes in that. In your conversations, are those student learning outcomes then going to be across all colleges? Because the way it's worded, it's just Common Course numbering. But when you get into student learning outcomes, that's when you get into the ease of transfer.
Yeah, and that's, that's the heart of the field of study conversation, because the core, right now, the state of Texas is taking a position that it's guaranteed transfer of the core. And so numbering shouldn't be a problem on that if we're going to guarantee that it's transferable as those credits towards the core. That should be less of a problem. Where we get into the real problems is in the fields of study. And that's where you really begin to ask the questions about what are the competencies that we're going to identify. And so that's the tuning process that the coordinating board has been going through in the engineering fields, is really to identify course by course what are the competencies expected to get electrical engineering degree. And so for those courses that would be taken at the community college that would transfer towards an electrical engineering degree, what are the competencies necessary to do that? So I think that's going to be the harder part, is getting the fields of study.
One last question. Before we break, can I ask everyone who served on one of these two commissions to stand up? Or who currently serve? Richard and Jim, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're adjourned. The bar's outside. Back in the big room at 6.